Hello, my name is Colby Atchison. I'm here with Educational Renaissance, and today I want to tell you a little bit about my new blog that just came out on Plato's Republic. I'm going to be doing a series over the course of the coming weeks and months on Plato's Republic and how classical educators today can apply insights from the Republic into their classrooms as they teach their students. We talk a lot about leading students to gaze upon all that is good, true, and beautiful in classical education. But sometimes that can become sort of a trivial phrase, and we don't really know what that means or what the deeper implications of that are. And I think through this series, I'm going to be able to help us shed some light on that. So today, I just want to just share a few remarks about Book 1. Book 1 of 10. There are 10 books in the Republic, and in Book 1, Plato sets the scene for the remainder of the text. So in Book 1, it's a traditional Socratic dialogue in many ways. Socrates and his companion Glaucon are on their way to a festival at the port of Athens called the Piraeus. And notably, they are going down to the Piraeus as the Republic begins. And that's not accidental to use that language of the downward movement. Here, Plato is actually alluding to a major theme that will come up later in the Republic about the allegory of the cave. This is the idea that prior to us gaining understanding and knowledge, all humans are stuck in ignorance, in the darkness of the cave. And they think they're in reality. They think the cave is all there is. But that's because they don't know the truth. They haven't been led out of the cave to gaze upon what is actually good and true and beautiful. And so by the Republic starting with Socrates going down to Piraeus, Plato is telling us the missional nature of what Socrates is up to. He is going back into the cave to help others understand and to take them up to the surface to gaze upon the truth and to come to understanding. So Socrates and Glaucon go down to Piraeus, they see the festival, and then they make they're heading back to Athens when they're stopped by some friends, by Polemarchus, a young wealthy nobleman, and his father Cephalus, and a few others. And next thing you know, they enter into a long discussion about the nature of justice, and is justice really worth it after all? And the book one here kind of occurs in two movements, okay? So in the first movement, Socrates is primarily dialoguing with Cephalus and Polemarchus, and they're talking about justice and what is justice. And these two fellows, this father and son, they sort of represent a trivial view of morality, of justice. They kind of have this general definition of justice as telling the truth and checking off the boxes and giving to one what they are due. But when Socrates presses them, it turns out that they really don't have much else to say. They fall pretty easily to these two objections. And it turns out that they kind of represent moral complacency. Like, yeah, act good insofar as it's convenient, but we really don't know how to defend our conception of justice. So the first movement here is about about moral complacency, but then things take a turn and we move into moral skepticism when Thrasymachus, the sophist, steps in. And he starts to throw some grenades into this whole conversation about justice. And he actually redefines it as, yeah, justice, I know you think you're talking about something objective and something actually woven into the fabric of reality, but actually justice is just the advantage of the stronger. Justice is just what rulers use to keep the people oppressed and at bay and following the rules. And actually, if you aren't part of the ruling class, it's better that you just actually be unjust. Your life will actually go better for you. It's worth being unjust in the long run. You'll make more money, you'll have a more successful life, you won't get robbed from taxes. It's better to be unjust. Well, in many ways, this objection of moral skepticism is what Socrates is going to raise his argument against in the rest of the Republic. And really, the Republic, with the ancient subtitle On Justice, is Plato's response to moral skepticism and the sophists. And actually, by the end of book one here, we don't have a super compelling case for the value of justice. The Socratic dialogue ends in a state of aporia, of confusion. And it's only going to be in the subsequent 9 books that Socrates lays out his conception of justice in a compelling manner, defining it as the well-orderedness of the soul and society. And this is where I think there are some practical applications for educators. And I encourage you to read my blog, which I'll share in the comment below, because there are just a few practical takeaways from this book one, this opening of the Republic, that I wanted to share. The first is trust the dialectic. So although by the end of book one, we haven't yet reached the truth on the nature of justice and why it's worth pursuing, what we do see is that the dialectic allows us to root out a lot of bad ideas. It allows us to raise objections, to pursue knowledge with a fierceness, with a passion, to discern the truth. And so as teachers, the use of the tool of dialectic, of discussion with an aim towards the truth, is invaluable. And I think that's a crucial part of what it means to teach classically, and we need to continue to grow in the craft of leading discussions that lead our students to the truth. A second takeaway for classical educators is argue for the objectivity of moral truth claims. Part of what it means to teach classically, in one sense, is to let students figure it out, to provide the parameters for the discussion, for the work, but let the students do the work of learning, and sometimes encounter roadblocks and sometimes get confused or be wrong about something, with the long-term confidence that they will arrive at the truth if they're guided properly and we put great books in front of them and so forth. At the same time, what we see here in book one is Socrates standing up for the truth, for him not just letting Thrasymachus, again, throw these grenades of moral skepticism out amongst his friends. Socrates actually steps in and asks the key questions and examines this idea of moral skepticism, and in this way stands up for the objectivity of moral truth claims. And I think that's just a great word for us teachers today as we live in our culture where, yes, we need to allow the discussion to do its work on students and allow them to grapple with complex ideas, while at the same time ensuring students in the confidence that there is objective truth and morality in our world, created by God. Well, finally, a last takeaway from Book One of the Republic is to cast vision for the good life. It's a bold idea today that there's a right way to live, that there's a path of virtue that leads to happiness, not mere pleasure seeking, but happiness as the ancients thought of it, as human flourishing. And what we see at the end of book one, when Socrates is talking about virtue, about the excellence of the soul, and how justice is the excellence of the soul, what we start to get the seeds of is this vision for the good life, of something that our students will want. As they read stories and encounter goodness and truth and beauty, they see, oh, I want that. And we can't force our students into the good life. They do need to choose, and by God's grace, they will. But we can show them glimpses of the good life and help them with a framework for this idea of virtue and the pursuit of wisdom. And I think we see those ideas present in Book One of the Republic. All right, well, thank you for listening. This wraps up my summary of my first blog in my new series on Plato's Republic. I hope it was helpful for you and that you'll follow along with me as we go through the Republic together as classical educators.